have you seen this rising channel playing out on Bitcoin, on the Bitcoin short-term charts? $41,000 target to the upside, $33,000 target to the downside. So around a 10% move to the upside and a 10% move to the downside. You all know me. I don't do a lot of short-term technical analysis on this YouTube channel unless it really ties into the macro longer-term story. And that's what's happening on this chart right now. This is why I want to dig into especially the $41,000 target and the story if Bitcoin can make it there. So hit the subscribe, hit the like, and let's do it. Before we dive into what's playing out here, I want to just, for some important context to what we're about to discuss, go to the daily chart. This is the daily chart. You can see this rising wedge we've been talking about for some time. Bitcoin kind of broke to the downside, pulled back right to these trend lines, and right now is broken above it and kind of even revisited the confluent area of those trend lines at this 20-day moving average. And we've had this other upper trend line that we've discussed along this story, right? And that is to say, this trend line in yellow going back to August or July 2022, we've had 1, 2, and now 3 touches. Now, here's where right now, Bitcoin is overbought. Even on this daily chart, we're seeing this bearish divergence we've been talking about on this YouTube channel, that is to say, going higher on the price chart, but losing momentum on the momentum oscillator, this slower moving RSI here. Very similar thing that happened here. Higher on price, falls on the momentum oscillator, and it kind of leads to dips, right? This is something historically Bitcoin does, cryptos do. This is technical analysis. It is very common for this to happen, which is why we have a very common target of around $33,000 if this happens. Now, here's where things get very intriguing, and then we're going to dig into the breakout potential for Bitcoin on the 6 hour. If we go to the weekly chart now, we've identified this move, and let me kind of zoom in so we can see this a little bit better. We've identified this move for Bitcoin, this yellow dotted line you see going up and down the screen, is escaping these moving averages. This blue line is basically where it happened last cycle, right? So we go back, and you can see Bitcoin escaping those moving averages, and then it consolidated, right? It consolidated back to the moving averages and below the moving averages, and then this green line is 2 cycles ago, Bitcoin doing the same thing. And you can just see if we go back there, this green line, Bitcoin escaping moving averages and then falling back to that area. Now, here's where things get kind of crazy for Bitcoin right now. If Bitcoin manages to, and let's go to the Bitcoin move on the current weekly chart to see what it's looking like. If Bitcoin manages to continue escaping to the upside, these moving averages, this is a kind of a bullish divergence we haven't seen. Meaning from a cycle perspective, it's time for Bitcoin to kind of consolidate. If it's going to repeat what it's done in previous cycles, it escaped the moving averages, it's time to consolidate. Just like it did last cycle with this blue line coming back down and the green line coming back down. Now, there's hints on even the weekly chart that Bitcoin might keep going. And one hint is this. We have, if we take a nice little trend line, from this swing high on the RSI that you see here, Bitcoin, to this swing high back here, you can just see Bitcoin a higher high on the RSI. Now, at this time last cycle, let me show you what Bitcoin was doing. Bitcoin was putting in a lower high at this time last cycle. So yeah, it's escaping moving averages slightly. But why that's happening, it's putting in a lower high momentum oscillator. Right now, the momentum on Bitcoin, it is overbought. And we have to be very careful of that. The momentum of Bitcoin putting in a higher high. So there could be short-term consolidation. And that's kind of what we're seeing, and that's what's playing out kind of in this channel. It's kind of sideways but up, right? It's a rising channel. But there is a case where Bitcoin actually just gets legs and explodes even higher right now. That's why this 6 hour chart is so intriguing to me. It's something new, right? I did a video the other day, and this was a few days ago. Check this clip out. What happens at this lower trend line? Bitcoin, if it starts going up and bouncing off this trend line, back to the upside, testing 38, potentially breaking above 38, testing this upper trend line. If Bitcoin can get a breakout, we have a target of around $41,000 to the upside. This would be an incredible bullish divergence from actual previous. So that's what we've been tracking. And when I did the video the other day, I think it was somewhere back here, 17th, I believe. We were testing this lower trend line, and I'm just thinking, this might be the time for Bitcoin. The bearish divergence happening on the daily. This might be the time for Bitcoin to really break to the downside. Maybe we get a pullback up to the trend line and continue to the target. But Bitcoin actually just resilient as of right now. And we're going to continue tracking this on the 6 hour. I just want to point something out. even right now in the zoomed in, you take a swing high of the upper trend line back here to the swing low. Bitcoin had a very short-term lower high Fibonacci, right? Right now, 37,450 down to around $37,000. Very small range. This is a very zoomed in chart. I don't do this a lot. But if Bitcoin can actually manage to break that Fibonacci, this is the trend line that we need to break. It's the $38,000 to $39,000 area. That trend line is so key because even if Bitcoin makes a move there, it's going to look nice. You might see people on Twitter or YouTube getting really bullish. But what's hanging out there, if we go over to the daily chart, essentially is this yellow upper trend line that we've been tracking. There's resistance right up there around $38,000 to $39,000 area. That's a really key resistance area, remember, with this bearish divergence playing out. So right now I'm being very careful all the way up to that area, just not getting excited about anything. But what happens if Bitcoin makes a move to the trend line? And again, 38 to 39,000, very big resistance here. What happens if it breaks that resistance? We start cruising up towards 40. This is going to be something new on the charts, and I wanted to point it out as we start this week. This is what I'm watching on Bitcoin. A lot of other things going on in the altcoin world. Probably do a video a little bit later on that. But this is what I'm watching right now for Bitcoin. Can it break out? Short-term Fibonacci, swing high to swing low. Back to the Fibonacci. It's there now, resistance. First step, break through that. Test the upper trend line here, 38 to 39. Can we get that breakout? That's what I'm watching, everybody. Let me know how you're doing out there. I hope you're doing well. Hit the subscribe, hit the like. Things are heating up. That is for sure as we get ready to go into that next cycle. Want to do a quick TA as we start this week because I think it's going to be an exciting week. I appreciate all of you cruising by. I'll see you in the next video. God bless.